to start here?
I was hoping they weren't even me.
Good evening. Welcome to Public Safety Committee meeting. And can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Schreiber?
Here.
Keith Placido?
Here.
Kalinowski?
Here.
Bowman? Barron?
Here.
Commissioner Bowman is excused this evening. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 3rd Public Safety Committee meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any corrections? Hearing none. Everybody approve? Say aye.
Aye.
And now I'd like to call on Chief Kelly for a police department report.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, a couple of months ago, Commissioner Larry Jones brought to us the information about the safety zones, the safe transfer zones, as we call them here in Abington, for the people who are exchanging things off of Craigslist or buying things off of Craigslist. And as you know, we've implemented that down in the lobby of the police department. I think Commissioner Jones has the copy of the sign that's down there. And I just want to know, the township has gotten a lot of attention. We've had a lot of phone calls from the news media about people that thought it was a great idea and wanted to implement it in other places. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And it seems to be working out well with no problems. So just wanted to report to you about that. Also wanted to report to you that Saskatchewan, Canada has developed a program for resolving community issues and reducing crime. They called it Collaborative Strategies for Improved Community Wellness and Safety. And it's getting a lot of attention around the world, actually, as an innovative way to address community issues. And they're bringing it to the United States through Penn State University, who chose Abington as one of the 3 communities to be test sites in Pennsylvania. And Abington was chosen because of its involvement in excellent and progressive programs in the past and the tremendous results that the school district and all of our partners in Abington have achieved for our youth and our youth programs. And I just want to make you aware of that because it's certainly something we can all be proud of. And secondly, we're gathering together the social service agencies and other agencies that are involved in these type of programs on February 11th, and they will be doing a teleconference from Saskatchewan at the 3 locations in the state, including here in Abington, to introduce us to that new movement and new process. So just want to make you aware of that, and because it's something that's kind of new and has created somewhat of a buzz in the social services area, I know, and so I want to make you aware that's what's going on. And finally, in just a little later on today, I'll be introducing our emergency management coordinator, and we'll be talking about the emergency management plan that needs to be implemented, but I'll hold off any further comments, Madam Chair, until you turn it back to me at that point.
Thank you. We're going to start with our formal agenda then. PS1.
Good.
PS1 is ordinance number 2087 to amend Chapter 156 Vehicles and Traffic. This is a motion to adopt ordinance number 2087, amending Chapter 156 Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2 Traffic Regulations, and Section 14 Stop Intersections, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Commissioners, staff, or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's move on to PS2. Ordinance number 2088 to amend Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, establishing Chapter 160, Towing. This is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2088, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, establishing Chapter 160, Towing, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions for commissioners?
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. Just a question. We had some background information on this.
Absolutely. Over the last several years, the Township Manager's Office and the Police Department have received numerous complaints regarding issues with some towing companies that are charging exorbitant amounts from the people that they're towing their vehicles, and even doing some rather underhanded practices. They actually have like spotters check private property parking lots, and in some cases even lots that are improperly posted. And then when they see vehicles on there, they call the tow comes, takes the vehicle away, and then they charge these exorbitant rates. And so this was brought to our attention over a number of different examples and cases, and so this ordinance will rectify that situation and bring it down to a much more reasonable and uniform situation so that our citizens aren't getting ripped off in this way.
Is there an example, Chief, of what the exorbitant prices were? Because if I'm looking at this correctly, and please tell me if I'm wrong, in Section 160.7, Section 160 or -7 and 160-8, it goes through the prices of $125, $50 for the hooking fee, $175 for non-commercial. Were the costs that much more excessive?
Commissioner, it was we saw some at $200 and $250. And I know Ms. Lefevre has some information passed on in just a moment. But the other issue was that they were parking in parking lots that weren't properly posted, and they were being towed off. The people were coming back and saying, wait, I'm right here, and they wouldn't even stop. They were still towing the vehicles away and making the people pay for it. There were a number of issues like that that are addressed in this ordinance.
Including adjusting some of that signage and making sure that the parking lots are properly notified.
Exactly,
okay.
Commissioner, and basically that if it's not properly posted, they can't tow it off of there.
That's the next question. Perfect. Great. Thank you.
And if I could just add to what Chief Kelly commented, my office received a number of complaints from residents and non-residents as well of the lots not being posted at all, so the motorists had no way of knowing they were parking illegally, and some of the fees charged were well in excess of $300. So it was certainly it was felt as predatory towing. People felt victimized, and they asked us to address the situation.
And how did we arrive at? And I know somebody else wanted to say something. How did we arrive at these numbers?
We've actually created several of these ordinances in other municipalities. So this is in consultation with a couple other municipal ordinances, and we also met with the 2 township duty towers and reviewed these rates with them, and they agreed that these rates were fair.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I want to add that the 2 that are our normal towers were not ever part of any of these complaints. It was always another, some other agencies. So I think it's important to say that they've done a good job for us. They've been reputable, and we haven't had complaints like that about them.
Chief, let me ask you another question. So if a new towing company were to come to town, they would have to come to the township and take out a bond, is that correct? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they'd have to register with us? Oh, it's to you, I'm sorry.
There's a license that's required in order to be able to tow in the township. And then there's a separate license in order to be able to tow on behalf of the township. And there will be 2 towing companies selected annually that will tow on behalf of the township. But just to tow in the township.
If you had
need
a
separate
private property and you wanted to have
Correct.
it tow, you would, so is the property owner the one that has to tell the towing company that they have to go to the township to do this?
The burden is placed on the towing company. The only exemption is
So how will they know?
if we get a complaint that there is a towing company that does not have a license, and in order to tow from these lots, they have to be posted. It's going to be somewhat complaint-driven, but if you want to have your vehicle towed from your property, there's no restriction on that. This is only towed from lots that are posted and on behalf of the township that are governed by this.
Yeah, okay. So if a commercial area is towing cars, right, and somebody complains about it, then we would find out if that towing company had gone through the process that they needed to go through or not.
Correct. And our police department does see the tow companies out there, and the rates are reported back rather frequently to the township staff if they are in excess of what are considered reasonable rates. So.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, many other municipalities have the same requirements to get registered and in the townships, and municipalities, so this is not something that's really foreign to them. If they're coming into our
okay.
town to do this, they're probably expecting something like that and checking on that.
Perfect.
And
No,
it's
I
not
think
a-
it's great. No, I
yeah.
think it's a great thing. I just wanted to make sure that they knew about it, so.
Yeah, and it's not an onerous requirement, and like I said, we did meet with the two companies that tow for the township, so they're aware, and there's some reporting, we expect that tow companies will report on each other that may not be registered.
Yeah, well, that's true, too. Yeah, good point. Any other comments from any commissioners? Staff or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS3 is a motion to adopt Resolution Number 15008, executing the current Abington Township Emergency Operations Plan. And am I calling on the chief, or am I calling, I'm not sure who I'm calling
Madam Chair,
on.
members of the committee, in March of 2013, the township hired Tom McEnany to be part-time emergency management administrator for our emergency management program. And as you know, we share him with Penn State University. Since that time, he's been quietly doing a great job for us, and he hasn't stopped the storms from coming this way, but nonetheless, he's done a great job informing us and coordinating all the work. And he has to talk to us about adopting the emergency management operations plan. So if I could, let me call on our emergency management administrator, Tom McEnany.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Madam Chairman, members of the board, I just want to give you, the goal of tonight, I want to give you basic information about the emergency management program here in Abington, and as well as respectfully request that the board promulgate the current emergency operations plan. As I'm sure you know, our emergency management team is made up of several people. Chief Kelly is the designated emergency management coordinator, and serving underneath of him with regards to emergency management are 5 deputy coordinators from both the police and fire department, as well as myself, Deputy Chief Livingood, Lieutenant McNamara, Fire Marshal Ken Clark, Sergeant Scott, and myself. And then I should also point out one of our dedicated volunteers, Jimmy Lee, also helps us out. He comes in several days a week, and during incidents, he's here for countless hours. So I just want to recognize him because he's here as well. So what does emergency management do? As Chief Kelly just said, it's actually a part-time position for the township because it's funded partly by Penn State Abington. I'm mostly going to focus on my functions for the township tonight, although my functions for Penn State are kind of mirror image. They just use different terminology in the higher ed world. So the 3 main functions of our emergency management program is first to maintain and administer our emergency operations plan, which we'll be talking about tonight, providing planning assistance and training to our response agencies as well as our other partners in the township, and finally coordinating the response to really complex incidents that involve multiple agencies, not your run-of-the-mill house fires or things like that, but larger incidents that require a lot of logistics and things like that. So, why do we have the emergency management plan? First, we're required to by law. The 2 main laws that dictate the emergency operations plan is Title 35 and PEMA Directive D 2007-1. And essentially, they state that we, as a municipality, we're required to have a designated emergency management coordinator. We have to have an emergency management plan that is regularly updated, at least every 2 years. Ours is updated at least yearly, and then some. And then that we have the ability to staff an emergency operations center. And then it also requires that the elected board vote on the plan to promulgate it. So those are the legal reasons for having it. The next are the financial reasons of having an emergency operations plan, and it's to be eligible for recovery of disaster funding. The Federal Stafford Act and Disaster Mitigation Act are the 2 FEMA-related laws that where we derive our ability to recover funding during disasters from FEMA and PEMA. As we know, these storms it's generally storms in our township, as we all know, and these can become very, very costly. Since 2010 alone, through the efforts of not just emergency management, but, police department, fire department, public works administration, and the Board of Commissioners, and I'm sure I'm missing, other people, we've been able to recover almost $800,000 of funds that were expended to respond to these storms. So, it's a, if I may say so, it's a good investment to have this program because it somewhat pays for itself, and it allows us to, be able to respond to the storms in such a manner that we can recover quicker. And finally, the practical reason of having a plan is, what happens when we have an emergency. Again, it's not, we don't respond when it's the, your run-of-the-mill house fire, your run-of-the-mill police operation. It's when there's multiple agencies, police, fire, EMS, public works, parks department, agencies from outside of the township, federal, state resources, and when we have to get private resources, whether it's cranes or fencing, things like that, that emergency management gets involved. Rapid restoration of services. We saw this, last year we experienced this with the ice storm. We had that ice storm on a Tuesday. People want their power back on as quickly as possible. They want to be able to drive on our roads to get back to work. So that takes a lot of coordination, and everybody has to work together in order to have the rapid restoration. And then finally, to keep the public informed. The days of people just tuning into the 6 o'clock news or listening to KYW are long past us. People want their information. They want it now. And so in order to keep up with that demand, we try and keep the public informed. Some of the avenues that we use, we have our cable channels, the Comcast channel and the Verizon channel. Our websites, the Abington Township website as well as the Abington PD website. Ready Notify, which is the county-driven mass notification system that we can send out texts and emails to anybody that subscribes. I'm hoping in the next few months to come back to you to tell you about a massive upgrade to that system, but that's the system that we have in place right now. The Special Needs Registry, where people with functional or mobility needs can register, and if there's an emergency that affects them, we can know where they are, know what needs they have, and be able to reach out to them specifically. And then the social media, Facebook and Twitter. So the nuts and bolts of the emergency operations plan, I provided enough discs for everybody to have a copy. I do have to warn you, there is some information in there that is sensitive, contact numbers, things like that, so please keep it confidential. If there's citizens that want a copy of the portions that are available to the public, we can burn a redacted copy for them. But getting back to the nuts and bolts of the plan itself, it essentially formalizes in writing what we do on a day-to-day basis as emergency services. It's considered an all-hazards plan. It's not written for specific emergencies. It's meant to expand and contract with the emergency itself. It's based on the National Incident Management System, and we all follow what's called the Incident Command System, and that is essentially common terminology that all emergency services use, so that you can theoretically plug in a firefighter or a police officer from California, and they're going to know what you're talking about when you're describing an incident, whether it's the common equipment, common terminology, things like that. And the plan we use is organized into 4 sections. The first is the basic plan, and that just lays out really the skeletal framework of our operations, and it includes what we call the hazard vulnerability analysis. And what that is we take a look at the threats that occur commonly in our township, which, as I said before, are generally weather-related, or threats that are not as common but will have a higher impact. An example would be mass casualty incidents. The next part are what they call the core functions. These are the annexes to the plan, and they're applicable to all types of emergencies, and what they do is they establish the responsibilities and capabilities of the responding agencies, essentially so that police department handles the investigations, works on, crowd control, as well as, scene security and, on SWAT type jobs. The fire department isn't telling the police how to run a SWAT job. police aren't telling Public Works how to clear a road. So it lays out everybody's responsibilities so that everybody knows what their jobs are. The next part is specific hazards. You know, we go through the specific hazards that we see time and again. Again, it's mostly weather-related, but there's also hazardous materials, mass casualty, and in this updated plan, we've added specific sections for active shooter, because that's something that we've been working on, you know, almost nonstop for the last 2 years, as well as infectious disease. It's something that, you know, pops its head up every couple of years, and this year with the Ebola scare, it's something that we decided was time to really add into our plan. And then the last part is what we call the notification and resource manual, and that has the directory of all of our mutual aid, our vendors and suppliers, that if we need to get, you know, a hold of a crane or dry ice at 3 o'clock in the morning and have it delivered inside of the school, we have the phone numbers to call the right people and get those things moving. The next part of what emergency management does is planning and training. We coordinate and provide planning and training to all of our response partners and infrastructure partners throughout the township. That's schools, hospitals, special hazards, you know, things like that. And one thing that some people may wonder, why are we providing this training and this planning to these somewhat private institutions? And the answer is essentially because our people are going to respond to their emergencies. So we want to have a hand in training them so they know what to expect from us, we know what to expect from them, as well as the fact that particularly what we've learned after these active shooter incidents is police, fire, and EMS, we're no longer what you would call the first responders. The people on the ground where these incidents are happening are your real first responders, your nurses in the hospitals, if it happens in a hospital, teachers in schools, the facilities people at these places. So we want to be able to give them the best training that we can so that if, God forbid, something happened, they know how to respond and they know what to expect from us. You know, this is just a short list of some of the things we've done: site assessments, active shooter training, tabletop exercises. I'm going to zip through the next couple slides because I'm not telling anybody in this room anything they don't know about the township, but it's kind of staggering when you see it on paper. Schools, on any given day, there's more than 14,000 students attending a school in Abington Township. We have 2 hospitals, with one of them being the only trauma center in Montgomery County. The other has one of the largest geriatric care facilities in the area. We have 7 nursing homes outside of the Holy Redeemer one of the largest regional shopping malls, 2 different rail lines, and we have at least 5 high-rise buildings. You know, one of the things when I look at this is most townships have a mall or a college or a hospital. Abington has one of each and probably 2 of most, and then you get to the high-rises. You know, so we have, you know, I think of this as a, you know, small town where I grew up, but when I look at this, we have the problems of large cities just on a smaller scale. So what we've been doing is we look at these facilities, these critical infrastructure facilities, these special hazard facilities, and we've been creating a questionnaire to send out to them requesting specific information, specific contacts, so that, and we've been putting them on a secure website for our responders so that when they respond to these facilities, they have this information at their fingertips instantly. And this is just a template, an example. I didn't put a real one because they have all the information on them of the information we've been collecting. And finally, the last portion of emergency management is we coordinate the responses to complex incidents. We're not a traditional response agency. We don't pick up a hose at a fire. We don't assist the police officers at a you know, a robbery or a crime scene. What happens is when there's a large incident, we coordinate what logistics and resources those folks need in order to do their job. And it's a lot more complex than just police, fire, and EMS, because particularly you think about the storms. When the storm's over, all those folks get to go home and go to bed, but then Public Works and Parks are out for days and weeks recovering from this to get everything back to normal. Township administration, is trying to keep everybody informed about, when the power's going back on, when the roads are going to be back up. The schools, public and private, they work with the Red Cross if we need to open a shelter. Also, they're a great resource for putting additional information out because they can reach out to almost, I think, a third of the township between the public and private schools to put information out. Our hospitals, the Department of Public Safety, and then transportation. If we have to move people, we can get buses from SEPTA as well as the school district to evacuate people in short order. The way we do this, we operate out of our emergency operations center down in the basement. Some people refer to it as a dungeon sometimes. It's been activated 32 times since it was established first in 1996. So that's an average of about 2 per year. Most recently, we opened it for about 10 days during the 2014 ice storm. And from there, we have all the radios, computers, and communications equipment that we need to coordinate an event. And we also use FieldCom 2, which is owned by the county, but operated by our township and housed by our township. And essentially, that's a mobile emergency operations center that we can bring to the scene of an incident. So that's about all I have for you. And if there's any questions.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir.
Question on FieldCom. Is that set up simply as a mobile unit, or does that have the capacity, if something should happen to the emergency center here, that could take on that responsibility as well?
It could, in theory. It wouldn't be very comfortable because it's
Space.
yeah, it's a good-sized truck, but not large enough that you want to operate out of there for any length of time. What we would do if our EOC here became inoperable, we would probably move it to either the Public Safety Training Annex or one of the 5 fire companies where they have backup generators, power, and internet, where we would be able to reestablish pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Commissioner Spiegelman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tom, another question actually about FieldCom. Since that's a county resource, if that needs to respond to an incident that is not in the township, who staffs it?
Generally, it depends on what they're calling for it for. We have the capability of staffing it for them. As we all sign a mutual aid agreement, we can staff that for them. If they have a need for it that's, I don't want to say outside our capabilities, but if they have a need for it for, one of the things, if they just need it to keep people out of the rain or something like that, we would just drive it up there and leave it to them, and they would bring it back when they were done with it.
Gotcha. Thank you. And thank you for that great presentation, Tom.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hecker?
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. Tom, earlier in the presentation, you mentioned about the special needs mobility registry for residents.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how a resident goes about getting on that registry?
Sure. It is on our emergency management section of our website, of the AbingtonTownship.org website. Additionally, I believe it is posted in the township calendar. I believe it's in the February section, so it's in the February section where they can register. And also, if people have questions, they can call my office at 267-536-1087, and I can either walk them through registering, or I've registered people myself for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I want to tell you that Tom has been assigned to try to get us an updated system on that. He's done a lot of work and research on that, and we are ready to move on it, but we're trying to coordinate with the county, who's kind of doing the same thing. We don't want to overlap, and that's the only reason we haven't been able to roll out the one for Abington. It'll be coming soon, and I think it'll be a tremendous step forward in that regard.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Staff or audience?
So Laura Lehman, Bryant Lane, in regard to the disabled registry, that's something they have to find the registry and sign up. So we have, like, for instance, I spoke to you about the Colonnade, and we had residents that until this past August, they didn't know where the disabled residents were in a building where the elevators regularly weren't working. So in the case of, for instance, an apartment building, are they required to list them, or at least required to notify residents that they should be listed?
Not that I know. No. special needs registry is, the person has to sign themselves up. There's no requirement for anybody to force them to sign up or for us to go out and actively seek that out. We try to as much as possible, but, I'm a one-man show.
So as I can imagine, you would also imagine that if we have apartment buildings and they are required to at least notify all their residents that this registry is there, it really would be, first of all, an incredible service, but also I think 90% of Abington doesn't know about this special needs registry, maybe 99%. And so the importance of having such a registry in a high-rise building is multiplied a zillion times. So I would like to hope we did that. And I had asked Mr. McEnany and did not receive a response, although in my right to knows, I did see his response to Mr. Lefevre that he didn't spill too many of the beans and so on. So I would like to see that residents are responded to. I still have not had a response from Mr. McEnany. The institutions, do they pay for the training? You said you give it to them because it's important for our personnel to have that, but could it not be done that they would pay for that training in any way? Or do you think they wouldn't get the training then? Or, I mean, couldn't the township require that they get this training?
Direct the questions to me.
I'm sorry. So I would like to ask whether the institutions, themselves could be responsible for that, rather than taxpayers paying Penn State to train their people for emergency personnel.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, and the last one is this nice presentation. If that could be put on the web, that would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, can I just make one comment? I think, Tom, didn't you say that that was on the calendar on the February about about registering?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I know it's in the calendar. I believe it's in the February.
People just have to really, really take advantage of their calendars. I wish they would. I kind of push it in my ward, and I'm sure everybody else does. It has so much information, and there's something right there that one of our constituents is saying people don't know anything about when it is clearly written in the calendar. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just one other comment. The folks who are in those high-risk areas, they receive that information from their caregivers and so on and so forth. So we have a pretty high rate of registry, and it's because that's where they get it. The average citizen wouldn't get it because, of course, they're not exposed or have those caregivers or visit those caregivers, but the ones that do get that information generally from them, just so it is a little bit easier, but certainly it's always a challenge to get that information out there, and we will continue to do that. One other thing I wanted to say, the Penn State Abington was mentioned, and I want to remind everybody that Penn State Abington pays half of Tom's annual salary. So all of that Penn State Abington is being paid for and covered. I understand the point means any of the agencies that Tom is helping out, and some of them he is doing the training there at no cost to them. But Penn State Abington certainly isn't one of them. They're paying more than their fair share on it, and just wanted to make sure that it didn't sound like they weren't, when in fact they're more than paying their fair share.
Thank you for those comments. Commissioner Kalinowski.
Tom, I just want to say thank you. You've done a great job over the years. We've seen this plan grow and grow, and you continue to make the changes that are needed with the world changing and everything else. We get our money's worth off you. I got to say, the storms and the things we've been through in the last couple of years, you're probably having an easy couple of weeks right now, but I'm sure it's going to come back and hit us again, and you'll be there for us in Abington. So I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the constant emails. Don't say that. We don't want a lot more emails from you, but thank you for the constant ones.
I'm sure everybody cringes every time they see my email address pop up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just interested, I don't know if anybody has this data, but I believe that, for example, Willow Grove Park Mall has 15 million annual visitors. Was that the correct number that I saw?
It is, although it's based on their own marketing materials that I
Right.
pulled it from, so I'm guessing it's a little inflated.
So 8 to 10 would be safe?
Yeah, I would think so.
Does anybody have, or could we throw out a guess as to what percentage of that would be Abington residents? Would it be thought that the majority of those people would be Abington residents who shop there?
I would have to contact them all to find out. I don't have that information available to me right now.
I'm just thinking that any potential, we hope that nothing happens, but any potential hazard that would take place, we want all lives to be saved and all lives to be
Absolutely.
safe, but that's specifically a service to our township and township residents so that they can be safe. So, thank you.
Sure.
But I'd be interested to know that percentage.
I'll try and find out.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, so we still have to vote on this resolution. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS4 is bids for police uniform equipment. This is a motion to award the contract for furnishing police uniform equipment to American Uniform Sales, Inc., and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Commissioners, staff, or audience? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS5 is bids for police uniforms, shirts, and coats. This is a motion to award the contract for furnishing police uniforms, shirts, coats to Red the Uniform Tailor, Inc., and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I actually have a question on this. You said it was the only bidder. Is that typical, and is that who we've worked with before?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, that's a great question because normally we have multiple bidders for everything. The reason that this is the case for this one particular thing is that once a vendor has the bid and creates the uniforms and has the thread and has the colors and everything like that, they obviously have an easier time keeping their costs down than somebody coming in and starting up from the beginning. In the past, we've had a few bidders. Each time, we've gotten less bidders until this time. They're the only bidders. So what we've done to make sure that we're getting a competitive bid is that we have compared their bids to previous bids and to make sure that all of a sudden they're not gouging us because of that. And the fact of the matter is, in the 2015 bid that this includes, there was only a 3% increase across the board from that was being charged for items in 2014, which certainly seemed like a reasonable amount. The 2016 year, there's no increase, and in 2017, there's a 3% increase built into it. One other point I'd just like to make is that because the officers only get a set clothing allowance, the cost of the township does not go up regardless of what the cost of the uniforms are. So they only get that same amount regardless. So they might be able to buy less uniforms for the amount that's been allocated to them. But it's important that you know that because of those things, the township cost does not go up at all.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
Excuse me, thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, how much is the bid right there? I'm not seeing it.
Pardon me?
How much was the bid from Red the Uniform? And if I'm missing it, I apologize.
Well, it doesn't quite work that way, Commissioner, because what happens is it depends upon what the officers order. So they bid with one of everything on it, so we know exactly what the price is for each of the items.
Item, so that's what you were talking about, that last reference
And
point.
then the officers, how much they order and which items they order will depend upon, how much it is. Although the ultimate thing we really could figure out in the sense that the officers only get a certain amount each year, and you multiply that by the number of officers, that's all that's spent on this period, regardless whether it's mostly on boots or mostly on coats or mostly on shirts or evenly distributed, the amount's still the same.
Do we have that amount?
So that's in the budget, right?
That's what I'm asking. It's just something we can look up in the budget and find.
The officers get $475 a year to buy uniforms and police equipment from these two vendors.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Staff or audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS6 is Buckle Up PA Seatbelt Enforcement and Education Project. This is a motion to authorize township officials to accept a grant from the North Central Highway Safety Network in the amount of $10,000. The Department of Transportation previously funded this program through Buckle Up Pennsylvania and is now funding this program through the North Central Highway Safety Network, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Staff or audience?
Laura Lehman, Bryant Lane, just asking whether this money would come from PennDOT that goes to the North Central Highway Safety Network. Do we know if they get their money from PennDOT? Would you be able to ask the chief?
Chief, do you know if where that money is coming from?
It used to come from there previously.
Madam Chairman and Commissioners, I'm not exactly sure where. I know it comes, the program itself comes through PennDOT. Who actually gives the money, I'm not too sure about that.
Excuse me.
Sounds like a transportation.
It's right here in the conditions of the agreement. The network has received funds from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation,
Thank you.
Bureau of Maintenance and Operations. The answer is yes, it comes from PennDOT.
Yeah, so it sounds like PennDOT
It's
is
PennDOT,
is
yeah.
funding this
Yes, thank you.
fully.
Commissioner Myers?
So just to make note then, am I wrong then in assuming that the monies that PennDOT gets from our red light cameras go into programs such as this that go through another agency and then back to us? Would I be wrong in assuming that?
Yes, ma'am.
So that wouldn't be any red light camera money that would be in there? Is that how that
That's correct.
answer is interpreted?
That's correct. The red light camera money goes into competitive grants that are given out directly by PennDOT.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS7, Aggressive Driving Grant. This is a motion to authorize township officials to accept a grant from the North Central Highway Safety Network, Inc., in the amount of $13,000 with the township's matching portion of $1,000. The township match will cover the Social Security costs of the officers working the grant, as this expense is not covered by the grant. At the conclusion of the grant, the Social Security expenses will be transferred to 0104-044-5110, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Kalinowski.
Just that this North Central Highway Safety Network, is that a new name for the Department of Transportation, or is it always been? Because it said before, Buckle Up Pennsylvania. Yeah. So I'm just,
Yeah, I believe the organization is kind of like the Spectrum, now the Wells Fargo Center. It's,
Okay.
You know,
It just got shut
whatever group takes over the project at the time,
and they decided to change the name.
so it changed names.
Okay. Or if they just pretty much combined these different programs into one, let's say, lump sum, North Central Highway. Good.
Madam Chairman,
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
I
Commissioner
believe
Jones.
that the North Central Highway Safety Network, I believe that the North Central Safety Highway Network, the Buckle Up PA, is an initiative of that organization. What it's saying on their website, the Governor's Highway Safety Association. I believe that's what it's saying here.
That's not what I got from what I was reading.
Yeah, when you read it through here, it doesn't kind of explain it, but okay. I just thought maybe it was a new department
Yeah.
So
created.
you're reading it from their
I'm
website?
reading
you're
it from
saying?
the Governor's Highway Safety Association website, and it says, through the efforts of the North Central Highway Safety Network's statewide highway safety initiative, Buckle Up PA. So I take that to mean, but again, this is dated back to when they won a national award back in about 05, actually.
So it was still Buckle Up.
So back then, it was
Pennsylvania.
Buckle Up PA, but it was an initiative of that department.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Staff or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. PS8, ordinance number 2090, to amend Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 7, Speed Limits Established. This is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2090, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 7, Speed Limit established for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on March 12, 2015. I know this was added to the agenda, so Commissioner Hecker.
You want
Oh.
to put the motion forward before I speak?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Hecker.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. This agenda item relates to traffic and pedestrian safety issues on Rockwell Road between the areas of Old Welsh Road and Edge Hill Road. And this portion of the township comprises wards 5, 10, and 11, with the preponderance of the area being Ward 10. And traffic and pedestrian safety on Rockwell has long been a concern for the residents who live on Rockwell and the surrounding area. And the tragic accident that occurred late last year in November that resulted in the loss of life of a 9-year-old girl reinforced the community's concerns about traffic and pedestrian safety. And so Commissioner Spiegelman and I, in consultation with Commissioner Luker and working with township staff and the police department, convened a community meeting in late November to talk with the residents about their longstanding concerns for traffic and pedestrian safety. And I must say, it was probably the most emotional community meeting I've ever participated in. And the young girl who was killed, her mother was in attendance and had a lot of positive things to say. So the long story short is we've been working in partnership with the township staff and the police department to develop a comprehensive plan to improve traffic and pedestrian safety conditions on Rockwell Road. It involves a number of measures. Some of them are already underway. There's a new street light that has been installed in the 1700 block. We have the funds from the multimodal grant from the state that should be received this year that will work to improve the conditions around the Crestmont train station, which will involve installation of sidewalks and crosswalks. And we are looking at the possibility of perhaps narrowing the traffic lanes on Rockwell Road as well. So this measure would be part of a comprehensive effort, and it would reduce the speed limit on Rockwell Road between Old Welsh and Edge Hill from 35 miles an hour down to 30 miles an hour. It's a step, it's a piece of a larger puzzle, and this motion is the result of a lot of effort on the part of township staff, the police department, and my fellow commissioners to do something tangible that will provide long-term benefit.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
If I could just
Commissioner
briefly add, I mean, I could not have said that better than Commissioner Hecker, but I want to reiterate that this has been an exceptionally difficult and trying time for the folks on Rockwell Road, but these are long-standing concerns that were really only truly concentrated and intensified by this horrible loss of life. But I do want to thank all the folks involved in putting this ordinance together, certainly working with township staff, working with the police department, but in particular, I want to commend Commissioner Hecker for his exceptional and dogged leadership on this. It was an honor to work with him on this initiative. Thank you.
I have sort of a practical question. So we just got this ordinance here, and where it says street or road between speed limit, and then there's like a big space, and then there's a sentence, and there's another big space. Is there a reason that is that just a spacing thing in the way it was written up, or is there something missing there?
No, it's just a spacing issue, and that'll be corrected in the final
Okay, just
draft.
wanted to make sure. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Staff or audience?
Is this the end of the meeting or that issue?
That's this issue. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now it would be the comment portion at the end of the...
Okay, so I have 3 comments tonight, and the first one is, I think most of you were at the meeting on Monday night and heard...
Can you say your name and address?
Laura Lehman, Bryant Lane. And I think most of you, I can't believe I forgot. I think most of you heard that Mr. Michelot said that on the schedule this year there were 3.6 miles, as there were in 2013. 3.6 miles of streets in 170 to 200 miles of streets means once every 50 to 55 years, your street will get paved. Okay?
Do you have a public safety
Well,
issue?
I think you heard me say the other night that it was a safety issue,
Okay.
that we need our streets saved because...
That really falls under Public Works.
And at the time that I was asking for a little more time, these were all safety issues, and I would have loved to see the chairman of the safety committee say, I'd like her to speak for another minute because I'd like to hear these safety issues. So I was cut off, and I was given 4 minutes, and I was cut off.
This is the public safety meeting.
This is public safety, and the issue of how many roads we pave in a year is a public safety issue. If you pave my road once every 55 years, it will be dangerous for 25 or 30 of those years, as mine is, okay? And I mentioned that I walk in the neighborhood, in the streets, and I often walk at night. And when I do, I can fall in a pothole. I mean, we have potholes in the street. We shouldn't have that, not with the taxes that we pay, okay? So I would like to see a proper schedule of paving as a safety issue, and I would bringing that to the safety committee. Number two, on the issue bringing to the safety committee, you also heard me the other night trying to get forth the fact that there was no enforcement in the colonnade. Chief Kelly, in a safety meeting on March 16th of 2013, said that we need the red light cameras because enforcement is what will bring us the traffic safety. Okay? Enforcement is what makes people follow the laws. And in the colonnade, we have somebody who flagrantly, okay, did not follow the laws and was not cited at all for these things that he did. Fees and fines non-existent. And there are some people in this township that are responsible for that I would like to see relieved of their duties. I think that they've not taken responsibility still, even looking back at that particular situation. And the fact that we had so many violations, so many lives disrupted, so much trauma for the residents who lived there, and money lost as well. And yet the people...
And your third issue?
I'm sorry?
And your third issue is, you said you had 3 issues.
Yeah,
and
the people who did not enforce the law are still in those positions with no...
And your third issue is?
And the third issue is, I have been waiting for an answer since December. In my neighborhood, there was a crime, and I called the officer who investigated that crime. He had checked up and down the street, which was nice. My neighbors knew that they had been asked, and they'd been alerted to the crime. However, when I talked to the officer, he did not know how many crimes there had been in the neighborhood. And I said, well, don't we have a place where you can check the overall picture? And he did not know. He said he would get back to me. This is February, not January. After several nudges, I've not had an answer. That's a huge safety issue. If we have a policeman investigating a burglary and who really does not have an idea of how many, there could have been 10 other burglaries in that neighborhood, and he has no idea how many burglaries are in that neighborhood, that's a safety issue. We have some things happening that either are not getting relayed properly to the residents or that should not be happening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I just want to mention that if anybody is experiencing where they have huge potholes on their street, please call your commissioner or call the township, and I'm sure the road crews will look into those. So thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Meeting is adjourned.
The February 4th, 2015 Public Affairs Committee of Abington Township is hereby convened. Let's start with the roll call.
Commissioner Spiegelman?
Here.
Barron?
Here.
Schreiber?
Here.
Sanchez?
Here.
Jennings?
Here. Everybody's here. All right. Let us start with the approval of the minutes. This is a motion to approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2014 Public Affairs Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are passed. And now, Mr. Doug Wendell, our Director of Parks and Recreation, how are you and how are the things you oversee?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Doing well. Things are a bit quiet right now, but I'm sure that we're getting ready for our summer program, so it's going to be picking up very shortly. We are selling the, until April 15th is the discount for the swimming pool membership, so if anybody's interested, you save $15 by getting in a little early. All of our skating rinks are open with the exception of Applethorpe Park. That has not frozen over, so the other 4, though, are ready to go and have been used pretty heavily. I believe we'll be doing some grooming this weekend on them to make sure they're in really good shape. So the temperature's been excellent, and I know a lot of people have been using them.
Alverthorpe did not freeze over?
Yeah, they didn't
Something
know.
didn't freeze over?
Are they in a different climate, or?
It's not, it has to freeze probably about 6 inches thick, because it has to support like a small vehicle, because we get out there and push the snow off and groom with a broom and stuff like that. It hasn't frozen in a number of years. Last time it froze was probably 15 years ago. But then where it was safe to use. It's really nice when it does freeze, because it's like the Hans Brinker deal. You just skate forever on there.
That gets more of an afternoon sun, I would say, there.
That too. The sun is on it for probably a good portion of the day, and it is fairly open.
That's not it. Ward 3 has all of the radiant and sparkling personalities, so that's what keeps it warmer, so thank you.
How long have you been waiting to pull that one out? It's been a while. Wow. Sounds like the kind of thing that I would say. Thank you very much, Mr. Wendell. Anyone from the commission have a question for Mr. Wendell? All right, then. Moving right along, we have very special guests today. Our good friends from the Township Human Relations Commission are going to make a presentation. We have Joanne Kleiner-Levin, Shelley Rosenberg, and Meredith Gill, and we welcome you.
And Tom.
Oh, Tom, I'm sorry, Tom. My apologies.
Tom the third, show some respect.
Hello, Tom.
Good evening. I'm Joanne Kleiner-Levin. I am the chair of the commission. I just wanted to bring you up to date on what we've been doing in the last year, and then I'm going to hand this over to Shelley, who's going to give you a little presentation. So in the last year, we have made presentations to Jenkintown and Glenside Rotary Clubs. We received a grant from the Jenkintown Rotary for mediation training, and Shelley and Meredith attended mediation training at Good Shepherd. I also went for myself for a refresher for mediation training. We participated in the Tri-State Human Relations Commission all-day continuing education program downtown in November. Shelley was one of the planners and coordinators, and Meredith and I participated on a panel on disability issues since the institution of the ADA. Shelley recently made a presentation to department heads for the township and did the presentation that you're going to be seeing tonight. We participated in Abington Night Out in August. We have been invited to enter into a work share agreement with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Can't tell you too much more than that because we received an email from them that none of us are really sure we understand, and we're waiting to hear more about it. We are in the process of preparing material for the TV station, and the website contains updated material that we've provided to them. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Shelley.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us here tonight. So I want to give you our presentation that we have been going out and giving to organizations in the township on request, and we hope to do a lot more of that. So our HRC was established in 2012 to ensure that all who work in our township, who live or visit in our township, are protected from unlawful discrimination. And what you should know about this is that there are only 36 municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania that have such protection. So it's very important and it's wonderful that Abington has voted to do this. There are 5 of us on the commission, the 3 of us who are here tonight, along with Larry Jackson and Dave Rontinelli, both of whom could not be with us tonight. The HRC is nonpartisan and provides all of its services free of charge. So we exist to help the members the people who live in our township. Let's see. Did I do it right?
Click.
Okay, that's, yeah. Thank you. One of the first things that we did was formulate a mission statement based on the ordinance, so that the job of our HRC is to promote the provisions of the ordinance, which prohibits discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations. We recognize the inherent dignity and worth of all people. Therefore, we strive throughout education, mediation, and community outreach that all members of our community enjoy equality and protection under the law. And I'm going to be explaining in a few minutes what some of these terms mean. What I think is important to say is that we are not just responding. One of the things that we decided to do as a commission from the get-go, and you've heard Joanne talk about some of the things that we've been doing, we are doing outreach, we are doing education, so we are not sitting back waiting for complaints to come to us. We hope that by being a proactive group and going out and educating people in the township as to what we do, that we exist, what we can do for them, perhaps we will forestall complaints by educating people how to live nicely, play well together, work well together, perhaps, and we'd be very happy if we don't get any complaints in Abington Township. We're not looking for business on that side. We're looking for business on the side of going out to educate. So what are discriminatory practices? They can be related to employment, the opportunity for a person to obtain employment for which that person is qualified. They can be related to public accommodation, the opportunity to go somewhere in the township, a restaurant, a lodging, a resort, a place of amusement, and get the same access to food, beverage, whatever that anyone else gets, and the opportunity to buy or rent commercial property or housing for which a person is qualified. Now, there are protected classes, and what you need to see is, and we're very proud that this is an update since the last time we were here, because you all passed and updated our ordinance to add familial status and age, so that it completely matches what is protected by state law, except for the last category. But just so you know, familial status means children under 18, and age means people over 40. So we are protected, which is very nice. I think it's also important, and I don't know whether, Meredith, you want to comment now or when we get to the other slide about use of training of guide animals. You want to do it now?
No, we can do it later.
Okay. But the one piece, the one group of people that are not protected, as you see on the right side, are not protected under state law, but you see on the right side protected under Abington Township law, and this was, sort of the instigation for this ordinance in the first place, is sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. And I will be talking in a few minutes about what that means. And what you also need to know about that is that folks are not protected under federal law. So we are the ones, Abington Township and the other 35 or so municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania, are the ones who protect people on the basis of sexual identity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. No one else is protecting those folks. You've heard, I'm sure, a lot about marriage, okay, and people who are, I talk with my hands, so I keep hitting this microphone. So you've heard a lot recently in the last couple of years about same-sex marriage and people being allowed, and now are allowed in Pennsylvania to get married, which is fantastic. It's wonderful. But imagine if the day after your wedding you go in and you put a picture on your desk of your now new spouse, and you can get fired from your job because of that. That's what this kind of protection means for people. Okay? So we ask, what does discrimination look like? Well, it's action. It's not thoughts. So we want to give some examples of what discrimination looks like. So one example we will give you is on the basis of race. A person who can say, my husband and I are African American. We went to see an apartment that was advertised for rent, and the landlord seemed uncomfortable with us. The landlord tried to rush us out. And when we said we'd like to rent this apartment, we like it, it's a great looking apartment, we want it, he said he doesn't rent to you people. That's discrimination on the basis of race. Discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. I worked for the same company for 4 years and I received outstanding reviews. But shortly after my boss learned that I'm gay, or in my case I might say that I'm a lesbian, I began receiving disciplinary warnings for things that other people frequently do and nobody is ever disciplined for. And after a month I was fired. It's discrimination. Do you want to do the?
Sure. If you're talking about discrimination on the basis of disability.
Here comes the mic, Meredith.
Thanks. It's a story in which a person is using a wheelchair and has a service dog, goes to a local restaurant, and the manager won't let me inside because I have the dog. The dog can stay outside. And you try to explain that it's your right to bring in the dog. We're all very well prepared to do that. And sometimes you do meet significant resistance. I've had this dog for 7 months now, and I have already had incidences, including in the township, where people said that I couldn't bring the dog in. And then I did say, I'm afraid that you're misinformed, the dog is allowed in. And it was a cultural barrier, that it was a shop owned by people who were immigrants, and there was just a little bit of a cultural and language barriers. They did welcome me in along with Tom, and we have not had any incidences since. But it's worth noting that these things still kind of do happen, even in a world where we think, oh, everybody's familiar with service dogs, and they are, but not always supportive in that way.
So how can we help? How can our HRC help? So this is what we're trying to do. The first thing is that we can educate people in the community so that everybody understands that all people, despite any differences that we may have, are entitled to dignity and respect. We can help diffuse tensions by facilitating open dialogue that is motivated by mutual respect and the desire to come to a mutually satisfying result. And we can mediate disputes when necessary, and I'm going to talk a little bit about mediation. But I also want to say to everybody who's in this room, you're now deputized to help us because you're hearing our program, you know what we're about, you can help educate people. I don't mean that you have to do the whole spiel that we're doing, but you know that we exist. Of course you know that we exist, and now hopefully you have even a better sense of what we can do. So every time we do a program like this, whether it's for 10 people, for 25 people, for 100 people, that's 10 or 25 or 100 more people who know about the Abington Township HRC. We got a big play in November when we were part of the Tri-State all-day conference. We had our picture in the paper. We were mentioned. So lots of people, not just from Abington, but from other townships and other municipalities started to know about us. And I think that's important for this township. So what's mediation? And this is just, the teeniest bit of an introduction to mediation, because that's what we are authorized in our ordinance to do. We are not authorized to investigate or adjudicate, thank you, my attorney friend. We are only allowed to mediate. But we've had training in mediation now, and I think it's a really good thing. We would be a neutral party as a facilitator to get both sides of a dispute talking. The goal of mediation is to come to a resolution that satisfies both parties. We can't force anybody to come to mediation. It is purely voluntary. But so both parties do retain the right to go to court, even if they come to us for mediation. And it's always confidential for everybody concerned. So we could not be subpoenaed to appear in court. And I think something that I learned about mediation, and just to go back for 1 minute, and I think this came up when I was presenting, thanks to Mr. Lefevre, to the staff. We were talking about mediation with, who's the lady with apartments, and I forget what committee that would have been. The point is that when you're doing mediation and people are not worried about going to court and they're not thinking in just little boxes, you can think out of the box and you can think about different things that would be more helpful to people, and people seem to hopefully relax a little bit and start to think very creatively when you're doing mediation. So I think that's a really good positive thing. Now we want to look a little bit more at some of the language in our ordinance. We talk about sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. So very quickly, and people can ask me questions afterwards if they want. Sexual orientation, someone's attraction to another person and the behavior that expresses those attractions. Gender identity, your inner understanding of what gender you belong to or identify with. And gender expression is how you express what you understand about yourself, and that can be through your clothing, through your mannerisms, through your haircut, through your voice, through your body characteristics. And there are certainly people whose gender expression and their own sense of their gender identity does not match what they might appear to look like on the surface. And that's a piece of what people need to understand. Some contemporary terms. These are not terms, well, transgenders, these are not terms that are in our ordinance, but they are terms that you will hear and that you ought to understand. The term queer. And people, when I use that term, even my fellow commissioners got very upset and, oh my goodness, that's a bad word and you shouldn't be using that term. I will say to you that you should be careful how you use that term. I use that term because I do a lot of work with the queer community, and it is an accepted term these days. It used to be considered a slur. It has sort of been reclaimed by some members of the LGBTQ community. Because it is an umbrella term that takes in lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. And also some younger LGBTQ folks will say they use that term so that other people can't use it to hurt them. I also know that there are people, and it's usually, not always, but often generational, so that you need to be careful how you're using it and with whom you're using it. And if you're not sure, then don't use it. Trans or transgender, an umbrella term for folks who know that they are a gender different from the one that they were assigned at birth or the one that they might appear to be physically. Trans man and trans woman, people find it very confusing which one is which and who and how. And what I would say to you is the easy way to understand it is whatever word comes after the word trans is what the person has transitioned or believes themselves, understands themselves to be. So a trans man is a person who might have appeared to be a female at birth, but knows that he himself is male. And at whatever point in transition that person is, considers himself to be male. Okay, so uses the word trans man, and the opposite, I guess I should say, for trans woman. Transition, that going from woman to man, man to woman, is different for different people. And what you should also understand is that it includes some or all of these following things: cultural, legal, medical adjustments. It means telling someone. It means changing your name. It can mean changing your sex on legal documents. It can mean hair removal, hormone therapy, or surgery. Or it could mean none of those. It could also mean, and a very difficult thing for folks to understand, is that there is a spectrum between male and female, and that some people never transition fully from male to female, female to male, but they live very comfortably for themselves. It's other folks who probably make them uncomfortable. They live knowing that they are somewhere on that spectrum. And what other people need to do is just respect that. Meredith's going to do this piece. See it? Yeah.
No, I'm good here. We also want people to understand a little bit about what person-first language is. And it has to do with talking with people with disabilities and mental disorders and in many different ways as people first. So instead of saying like a handicapped woman or a disabled man or a schizophrenic, to kind of rephrase it and think of it as being like someone, like a person with a disability or a woman with schizophrenia, so that the emphasis isn't immediately placed on a deficit, and that we do identify and kind of immediately start to respect someone as a person before we're looking at any other like physical capabilities. Was there a second slide? So instead of using words like disabled, I'm on the fence about that. Some people dislike it. It doesn't bother me. Retard used to be a mental diagnosis. Now, of course, it isn't an appropriate way to talk about anyone. But because some people dislike disabled, other people dislike handicapped, I really don't mind. But other people very deeply, deeply do. So it's always safe and never disrespectful to frame it in a way so that it's a person with a disability. And the idea of like calling people wheelchair bound or confined to a wheelchair, people don't always see it that way. Like without the wheelchair, I wouldn't be able to go anywhere. So my wheelchair doesn't confine me, it frees me. It makes it possible for me to go about and live a functional and worthwhile life. So just a little bit of perspective. Again, handicapped parking, we talked about that. Accessible is a better way to look at it and to think of it and refer to it in case people are uncomfortable with handicap. There's shady origins of that term. It had to do with people who were disabled and begging, so they would have their cap in their hands, begging for money, and some people still interpret it in a bad way, but it's always just a good idea to identify a person and an ability before going right to physical needs or deficits. And here is some contact information for us. This is available on the township website as well. We can call people. We have a Google Voice number that goes to my phone. So I've taken calls with people. Sometimes, most of the calls that I've had, they are things that we can't actually address. It doesn't have to do with a violation of any of the protected classes included in the ordinance, but I might know of other places to refer them, so we try to help them however we can. Cheltenham doesn't have a phone number, so I've had a few people from Cheltenham call our number because it was the only way that they could get a hold of a person. But this is an email that's available. We can be reached. We check it regularly. There's a phone number also, like I said, goes directly to my cell phone. And we have information on the township website that includes like our mission statement, a brief introduction to what the process would look like if someone was, if their rights were violated and they wanted to move forward with a complaint, and just a general number, or a way that they can reach us in case they need to talk about something that they think we might be able to help them resolve.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I know I'll open it up to questions from commissioners, but I just want to say, first of all, I'll ask my standard question. Do you have this brochure in electronic form that we can share on our newsletters? Oh.
As of today, yes, Ashley put that on the website this morning. We retooled it a couple of times, and as of today, she put that up. She put the new ordinance up with the change of language, and she put a sort of an overall paper that we had written right at the beginning. The mission statement is there in two forms, and an overall statement that talks about what we do and how to start the process if you think you have a complaint. The complaint form is not on there very deliberately because we want to talk to people first. You don't want them just downloading the complaint form and willy-nilly writing up complaints. We want to talk to them. Meredith would be the first one, to sort of get a handle on something, talk to them, and then if we think that it's appropriate, we would send that complaint form. And we've had, I think, 2 phone calls, right?
Yes.
Neither of which were.
Well, one was in-depth and upsetting, but based in Cheltenham. And another was from someone who was legitimately being disrespected, but there wasn't any violation of his rights, specifically regarding his status as a member of a protected class.
Well, thank you again. I want to say, I mean, certainly it would have been very easy for this commission to default to being reaction-oriented, being reactive, but you guys have really, you and all 5 commissioners have really made this a very proactive committee and very, very impressive. I love the updated presentation. It's accessible and very inviting. And Meredith, I just want to say thank you very much for sharing your story, your experience regarding discrimination with Tom not being let in. I know I can only imagine how difficult that was, but thank you for not only sharing this with us, but also for breaking that ground for other folks who have a guide animal companion.
Thank you.
So thank you. With that, I'll open it up if anyone has any questions for our Human Relations Commission. Commissioner Schreiber.
We got that same email that was sort of, didn't make a lot of sense from the Harrisburg office. Is there, from that, I don't know who I'm talking to, I guess.
I did respond to it.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. And so
Yeah,
we're
I did
just waiting to see what that really
We haven't
means?
heard anything yet. What was confusing about it was, we already do one of the things that they want us to do, which is tell people that they can lose their rights. If it's a cause of action that's protected under state law, we already know to tell them, you're going to lose your rights if you don't file immediately with the state. Don't stop with us. So all the local commissions do that anyway, as a matter of course. But there was something in there about mediating complaints that go to the state, and that really didn't make any sense to us. That's the part that we
It
really
almost
didn't
sounded like
understand.
they were going to be sending them back to you if it was in this area or something.
Right.
And
It
which
was
maybe,
confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't heard back from him yet. I did email him, we just haven't heard anything yet.
Okay, thank you.
But I will say that it was discussed at the tri-state meeting. I attend these tri-state commission meetings I think we hold them about every 6 weeks. And so that was mentioned at our last tri-state meeting. And people seem to feel really good about it. I mean, we didn't hear the specifics, so we didn't hear that piece that is now troubling us. But in general, commissioners from other, like Will Murray was there, and some folks in Bucks County and in Lansdale or Lansdowne, I don't remember. Lansdowne.
Yeah.
And everybody felt very good that we were going to be partnering with them. So I
That's great.
assume that piece will get straightened out, and it'll be a good thing.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you again. And, Commissioner Jones, I'm sorry.
Question and a comment/question. So let's say, for example, under mediation, let's say that I'm an individual. I understand that if I'm denied access to renting property or I'm denied employment, I get that. What if I am currently in my home and I'm a protected class and individuals are making me feel uncomfortable in my home? Is that more of a mediation to solve it, or is that more of directly to the police department? Because that's a situation that we dealt with the police and we're able to work it out, but would there be an opportunity for mediation through your organization?
That's not really a discrimination issue.
Okay.
That is something that you could go to the police with, or No Place for Hate. However, if you wanted to bring it to us to mediate, we could do that anyway.
Okay. And then the statement is, I am not a believer in silver bullets except for one, and I think that's education. So I think that to see matters of sexuality, gender, individuals with disabilities, and educating people to that, I think is the number one way that we knock down barriers. I would just like to ask, is there similar looking at of issues of how to break down barriers between race and cultures? I know a lot of people think we're in a post-racial society. That is not the case.
Right.
How do we break those things down, especially in light of many of the things that we have dealt with in the country recently?
Well, that's why we have really, over the course of time since we've been established, we have more and more come to view our role as really community outreach and education to help people learn to live together and to break down some of those barriers. And that's why we're now so big on education and going out and doing presentations with people. Because I agree with you, education really is the only silver bullet. I mean, I have a daughter with major disabilities, and she's now 26, and throughout her life, I've come to believe that the best way, yes, there are times when I've had to file complaints, I've participated in class action lawsuit with her, but on a one-to-one level, the best way is education, to make people understand that underneath we're all the same, and that's really what's necessary.
I think it's incredibly insightful when you mentioned that part of the issue that you faced was that there may have been this cultural and or language barrier. And I think a lot of times when we don't recognize, some cultures believe that if you look someone in the eye, you're being disrespectful. And if I'm having a conversation with you and you don't look me in the eye, now I'll say to you, look me in the eye. So I'm forcing you to be disrespectful, and then we get into this conflict. But if somebody just came in and said, hey, hold on a second. So I don't know where there's space or with so many cultures out there, but I think that could go a tremendously long way in bridging a lot of the gaps.
And that's also part of the beauty of mediation, because one of the main roles of the mediator is to act as a facilitator in generating conversation between the parties and getting them to listen to each other and hear each other. That's really the goal of a good mediation. So that's where that comes in as well, is to get past that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Commissioner Johnson.
Tom stole the show, by the way.
He hasn't put Billy up yet.
I hope the camera can capture Tom right now, because that is exactly the reaction we try to engender. This is exactly the reaction we try to engender in all of the folks who visit us here at our meetings. Thank you again. And
Thank you.
Joanne, I owe you an apology for the second year in a row. Joanne Kleiner Levin, I butchered your name. This is 2 years in a row. Next year, I'm going to get it right. Thank you. Thank you again, Human Relations Commission.
Can I just say,
Shelley.
like any of you, I think Lori has come, John has come, and somebody else came. But
I'll be back, too.
Steve came. So if any of the commissioners would like to come to one of our meetings, we welcome you, we invite you.
We're the second Tuesday of every month in the engineers conference room.
Right. And if we're not going to meet, it's usually because of bad weather, or occasionally we change the meetings because of our own schedules. But we let Ashley know, a day or two in advance if we're going to do that. But we'd be happy to.
And you're also looking for other places that you could speak, community groups, classes, things like that? Civic associations?
I had a meeting with Dr. Sickle. We did receive one complaint that really was school-related, and I directed them to approach Dr. Sickle about it. But I had a meeting with her last year. We agreed to try to work together wherever possible. They have a club at the high school for gay students, and they had talked about us working with them, just so these kids could feel safe and know that there's resources out there.
That's great.
So we'd like to go do some work with the GSA at the school. And we're getting ready to send out, we did this when we were first organized, we're getting ready to send out another letter to another 10 or 12 organizations that introduce us and say, we'd like to come do a PowerPoint presentation for your staff, your whomever. It'll take anywhere between a half an hour and an hour. We can make it longer. We're good talkers. So we're getting ready to send out the second batch of about 20 letters shortly. And but if any of you have, you've got your fingers in the community, and if you have groups that you want us to come to, churches, synagogues, whatever, other organizations, businesses that you know of that you think ought to hear from us, please let us know, or just talk to them and tell them to call us.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Human Relations Commission. And now we are going to start with the only 3 items on our formal agenda. The first is PA1, Resolution Number 15-007 for Pico Green Region Grant for Jackson Park. This is a motion to approve Resolution Number 15-007, which authorizes the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to make application to the Natural Lands Trust for the 2015 Pico Green Region Grant in the amount of $10,000. The funding will be used for the removal of invasive vines and the establishment of a meadow in Jackson Park, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. It seems pretty straightforward. Doug, is there anything you want to say about it? I mean, it's
Well,
pretty
what
straightforward.
we're trying to do at this point is to leverage the $15,000 the commissioners gave us for the capital, the removal of the invasives, as you said. So if we can, we would hopefully be able to expand the area that we're going to remove invasives from inside Jackson Park, because right now this is really enough to cover the area on the Amity roadside. We're also looking to create a meadow on that Amity roadside, and if possible, if we get this grant, we might be able to do the other two meadows that are on the Meadowbrook roadside. That would help to reduce mowing needs and also create a landscape of native flowers that wild birds could use, and then obviously the deer that are there would get fed. So it's just an opportunity to expand what we already get or going to have.
Great. Well, I thank you for the explanation. Are there any questions from commissioners? Questions from staff? Questions from the audience?
Laura Lehman, Bryant Lane, and I'm asking again because I really haven't had an answer and do not understand why we're getting a grant for Jackson Park when the Nature Center, the Boy Scout Conservancy, Nature Conservancy, whatever we call that, we call it different things all the time, is literally covered over in vines, and I hear no plan to do anything about that. I don't understand that, and I would love to hear what the response is as far as taking care of that precious piece of land.
Mr. Wendell, you're under no pressure to be on the spot, but if you'd like to respond to that, please feel free to.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Jackson Park was chosen for we made a request for Jackson Park for the removal of the invasives for a number of reasons. One is that Jackson Park has as much invasive problem as probably the Carebrook Nature Center, Nature Study Area, or the Boy Scout Nature Study Area. The other thing with Jackson Park is it's a very active area, as opposed to either the Boy Scout Nature Study Area. There hasn't been a Boy Scout in the Boy Scout Nature Study Area that I'm aware of for many years. Carebrook itself is half marsh, and in all the number of times I've been in there, I have seen very little to no human activity, plenty of animal activity, but no human activity. And Jackson Park, on the other hand, has paths that are used regularly by the residents on either Amity Road, Sherwood Avenue, or on Meadowbrook Road. And it's an area that we've already started working on in other ways to remove dead trees, and we have a master plan for Jackson Park that recommends the removal of the invasives, reestablishing a pond that's there, which you can't see because of all the invasives, just to do a lot of things over there that would make it more usable, and the people in that neighborhood do use it.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So what I'd like to say in reference to that is that these other lands were given to our Parks Director to take care of, and the trees there are dying. They're literally buried under and dying. And we've had people at this podium talking about the value of the trees in our environment and in our township, and $4,000 per tree. And it's if we do not have the money to take care of the grounds and lands that we do have, we shouldn't be buying other lands. We should let other people buy them and take care of them. We really need to take care of the things that are put in our care in a proper manner. So I certainly would like to see that. And just a quick add-on to the disabilities thing that the ladies
If that could
brought
please
up.
wait till the general comments
Yeah.
at the end.
Except it has to do with this, which goes in and out, and I just wanted to ask if we could buy another for hearing impaired people, if we could possibly find another one. Thank you, Ms. Waymeyer, for all your help getting this, and when it works, it's wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there are no other comments, we will vote. All in favor of PA1? Aye. Opposed? PA1 passes. Next item is PA2, Resolution Number 15-010, Pool Feasibility Study Grant. This is a motion to approve Resolution Number 15-010, which states that the Township of Abington desires to receive a grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to undertake a pool feasibility study for Penbryn and Crestmont pools, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Doug, again, it seems pretty straightforward. Whatever you want to say about it, please feel free.
In order to get any money from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, we're required to do a feasibility study. It's a good thing anyway, because then we can get some professionals to come in and take a look and see maybe where other sources of income are, or just generally whether or not there's enough income or enough use of the pools now to generate the income we would need after the pools have been renovated. So it's an important study to have done. It helps the township make a good decision. And at this point, we will be doing, both pools are 40 years old or more, and are in desperate need of renovation. So this is the time now to get that information and figure it out, and then probably the next couple of years make a recommendation for the renovation. So it looks like so far I've gotten one RFP back, and it was around $30,000. So we'll see. I have 4 more requests out, so we'll see how many of them come back and if there's anything lower. But it looks like it'll be around $30,000, which is what I was told to expect.
And having the completed feasibility study, I can only hope would streamline when the time comes for us to approve monies to renovate the pools. That'll streamline the process of actually making that happen.
I would have to think that DCNR gives you many, because these things are all point-based. You get so many points for each different section, and if you receive the feasibility grant, I'd have to believe that they would look very favorably on a request for a grant for a pool renovation. There's not a lot of money in it, but there's a fair amount, and why spend our money when we can use others?
I could not concur with that sentiment more. Questions from members of the committee or commissioners in general? Staff? Audience? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PA2 passes. Our final agenda item is PA3, Economic Development Business District Landscape Maintenance Bid. This is a motion authorizing the proper township officials to contract with Louis F. Biasi, landscape contractor, for the 2015 service year in an amount not to exceed $75,000 for the Business District Landscape Maintenance Contract. Funds will be drawn from Economic Development capital accounts reserved for this purpose, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Assistant Township Manager Waymire, would you like to give us a little overview?
Yes, we are currently contracted with Lou Biasi,
Yeah.
and this is just a motion to approve for this final contract year. The funds have been budgeted for and approved in the 2015 budget.
I recall. And I know we've been doing business with Lou Biasi for some time now.
Yes.
Excellent. Questions from members of the committee or commissioners in general?
Yeah. Just a quick question. Thank you very much, Commissioner Spiegelman. Just a quick question, and I apologize for being vague on this. It says we have a 3-year bid from 2013 that recommends the continuance of the 3 years. We don't have to put this out for bid again. We can just go ahead and continue on. It doesn't violate what we had come to, I guess, earlier last year.
This is actually part of that 3-year process.
So that's fine.
This is to reaffirm the amount budgeted that will be allocated for that purpose.
So at the end of this next 3-year period, we then have to put it out for bid. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farron. Any other questions from commissioners? Township staff? Audience? Hearing none, let's vote on PA3. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? PA3 passes. All right. With no further ado, we will entertain questions pertaining to the various realms of public affairs from the public. As always, name and address, and please limit your questions, comments to 3 minutes.
Okay, so Laura Lehman, Bryant Lane, and the first thing I'd like to say is 3 minutes sometimes isn't enough, as you have allowed for many other residents here at this podium. And picking and choosing which ones you allow that for and don't allow that for doesn't really seem fair, does it?
I'm neither picking nor choosing,
Or
but please
according to
continue.
policy. No, but it has been done regularly. So the other thing I'd like to talk about tonight is issues of honesty and conflict of interest, and what happens when the township gets put in a position where people are probably even breaking the law with dishonest comments. and where that might put the township and the residents' tax dollars. This afternoon, not this afternoon, on Monday afternoon, Monday evening, you heard some discussion about the Tyson Avenue thing, and there was a great deal of discussion about the conflict of interest and whether the solicitor should be doing that. There's also an issue with whether you were given the correct information, because I called since then and found out that what seems to be the case is that the federal funds would also require a bid, and township funds require a bid.
Ms. Lehman,
This is about whether you've been given the correct information. That's a matter of public affairs. I know what you're going to try to do. You're going to try to say...
I'm not trying to do anything. I am stating, look, I was here Monday night, and I commented precisely in response to your comment. That is in the purview of Public Works, and we discussed it comprehensively.
But the issue of whether, of what kind of dilemma and financial peril is this township is being placed in terms of, for instance, possibly defending these people if they are charged with, at one point, when Mr. Powers told a story that was completely untrue, I referred to the legislative, to the law that actually would make that a crime. I was told by Rudolph Clark that that was no crime. I asked why later, and they said, because we said so. Okay, so I looked into it further, and in fact, putting false information that you know to be false in the record is indeed covered under that act. That puts our township at peril. That's an issue of public affairs.
You're saying that someone has committed a crime. Who has committed the crime? And what is the crime that was committed?
Well, I specifically already just told you. Okay, I specifically already just told you that Mr. Powers told a story that was not true. It went into the public record in this township. Okay, the documentation shows that it wasn't true. When he was called on it, he told another story that was equally not true and equally defied all of the documentation.
I am understood, just to make sure that we're on the same page, I am understanding correctly that you are right now before this committee accusing Township Engineer Powers of
I'm here to have a discussion.
Making false statements and committing a crime.
Okay.
I just want to make sure, am I understanding that correctly?
I would like to make sure that you're not interrupting my comments, because this is my comment period, not yours. Okay? You have all the time that you need to comment when I'm done commenting.
I wanted to...
Please stop directing my comments, and please stop telling me how I should speak and what I should say.
That part we finished with.
I want to say
you are making a rather inflammatory charge. Charging a township director with
I've already said it at this podium 5 or 6 or 7 times, that he told you something that wasn't true. I've made it already. You're trying to make something absolutely dramatic out of it. I'm trying to tell you this is a regular happening in this township, and in fact, I believe to the best of my ability to know that it happened again on Monday night. And I believe that you should be interested in knowing that. Okay? That the federal funds also would have to be bid out, and township funds would have to be bid out. And it's my understanding that the township actually suggested that this did not have to go to federal bid. And the reason was because the township was going to take all of that part that was the public service funds, and they were going to pay them, and so none of the rest of it would have to, the federal part could go out to bid, and they were going to take that on at the township. And how the township got out of bidding, because the township also is supposed to bid that, is that Mr. Powers simply didn't submit it in time for a bid, and when he didn't submit it in time, then they used the reason that it would hold up the project. So, in fact, that's what it appears to be. I'm bringing it to your attention, and I think it's important that somebody does bring it to your attention. If I'm in error on something, I'm asking to have a response and find out what it is I'm in error on.
I would actually like to ask Solicitor Gallagher to please comment with regard to these claims.
Certainly, Commissioner Spiegelman. Obviously, if for the construction of the project itself, it certainly will be bid, but the services that were at issue are professional services. They are not required to go out to bid by any federal or state law. There is a local resolution that does require certain professional services to go out to a request for proposal. Bidding is a term of art that is not appropriate when we were talking about professional services. But there were circumstances that surrounded this particular incident and the resolution does provide for an exception where there is a time constraint under for the project, which was a topic of discussion on Monday. The federal bidding requirements do not involve are not involved in this particular portion of the project at this time. The construction will certainly be fully bid pursuant to all federal and state requirements.
I realize that you explained this thoroughly on Monday night, and I want to thank you for reiterating that.
And that was not what was explained by Mr. Powers, who said at
Certainly
first that the state did not, that the state
All right,
wouldn't
all right.
let them.
You know what? Okay. Mr.
Okay.
Powers is clearly not here to comment, to refute, to defend himself. You've made your point on this clear.
You never let me defend myself, so...
And no one has attacked you. You explicitly accused a township director of committing a crime and providing false information. No one has attacked you.
No one has attacked
But
me?
the patience of this committee is pretty much done. Have you any other comments for this evening?
Yes, my other comments are to look up 23 CFR, which is the federal regulations on bidding, and also, again, with the conflicts of interest, I would like to see that we have some strong policies that acknowledge this is the most overt conflict of interest I've ever seen. In fact, you just invited the person involved in one of the conflicts of interest here to tell you what the law was around that. So there's a problem. There's a problem with that. If you say the contract needs to be overseen by our solicitor, the contract is for Rudolph Clark. You're going to say,
Okay.
who's looking over that contract?
This is ground that was trodden completely.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm going to ask Solicitor Clark or Manager Lefevre if there's anything else they'd like to add.
I believe this is all fairly thoroughly vetted on Monday evening, and I've explained it again tonight. I don't believe that there's any conflict of interest, and like you have pointed out, I think we've already thoroughly discussed this issue.
Thank you kindly. With that, the committee is adjourned.